wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit. I mean, still on kind of the same topic, but I can only imagine because like Dan and I have spoken about our experiences on the podcast before about how running a business, the entrepreneur life, like, you know, being like the boss can kind of be a lonely endeavor and can kind of be tough.
I think before the podcast, I called it the mental torment of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. The mental torment of being an entrepreneur. Perfect way to put it. Yeah. So I was just like hearing you say all this, I can only imagine like the order of magnitude greater that it must be for you, knowing that like you have to deal with all the stuff that I feel like Dan and I deal with, but also like the stress of like having to raise and having all these people that work for you, and knowing like essentially like I know I feel a responsibility for my employees, and I'm sure you feel the same, you know, like, okay, like I have to do this for the company to survive, but also like for these people and all that. Like, can you speak a little bit to that? Like how you deal with basically the pressure? Cause that's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody's, you know, struggle in entrepreneurship is bigger or worse. You know, the CEO of Airbnb has a lot more mouths to feed than you guys, but he's also got a very qualified team of executives that ultimately, you know, if they're not doing their job, then, you know, like it's more their faults. And whereas the buck kind of stops with you guys. So like, yeah, you know, bigger companies, more mouths to feed, more pressure to make it succeed. Same kind of things happen when you take on venture capital and you hire people. But I definitely think that you guys, you know, go through the same struggle that, you know, the CEO of Airbnb goes through. And I think Elon Musk called it chewing glass and staring into the abyss.
It's funny because you don't even have to explain that for me to understand exactly what you mean.
I totally get it. Yeah. It's just constantly enduring pain while being alone. Yeah.
Totally unfazed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also think that on some level, I don't have the answer to like how to endure this. On some level, I think it's a personality thing. Like I am a very, let's say I have an internal locus of control, right? Like I do things for my own reasons and my own motivations. Because if I was doing this to impress somebody else, eventually they would not be impressed and I would give up. And I think it's the same thing, you know, for you guys, if you were growing your business to impress your friend Zach, who has, you know, super sexy VCs invested in his company, you would be like, okay, well, you know, we're not going to get these types of VCs in our company, but you're doing it for yourselves. You're doing it to challenge yourself, to, you know, make more money than you would working for someone else, to build a great team, work with people that you really enjoy working with, you know, build a culture, be part of a great culture, and hopefully build something that's self-sustaining. And when you do take your foot off the gas, you know, eventually you're surprised to find everything just keeps, you know, smoothly coasting along. But there is a very, very long time for which if you take your foot off the gas, everything just halts to a stop. And I think that's the hardest part. And our companies run out of money, entirely run out of money. Sorry, I hope that I bumped my microphone.
Oh, okay. It's all good. Don't worry about it.
I'm not on mute, am I?
No, we can hear you. You're good.
Yeah, I pressed it and then unpressed it. Just when I was getting to the juicy stuff, right?
Yeah. We were just really getting going.
You were just finished shedding a tear. Before you started.
Yeah. I mean, like we completely ran out of money. At you know, at least a handful of points, and there's a lot of hard things about those moments. You know, one is obviously like, okay, this is pretty stressful. Like I have to figure out how to make payroll, time to start calling my friends and family. But the other is like, you know, how did I let it get to this point? Because I'm smarter than that, right? Like I've run businesses before. I ran a really big Student Works College Pro franchise. I went to all these incubators and courses. I learned about cash flow management. I studied finance. How did I let it get to this point? And then the other very tough thing about being a venture-backed company is like, I don't want to go to my investors because they will give me money and they will take a very big chunk of the company. So anything I can do to avoid raising more VC before I need it is really huge. I think it's uncomparable. And I think really like a lot of credit goes to entrepreneurs, and then a lot of credit goes to the entrepreneurs support system. So, my family, my wife, like people who put up with all my shit when things are down, like they probably need more credit than they'll ever get if the company succeeds and IPOs and everything. Can
you take us into that? I feel like that's a very common theme in fast scaling businesses where you're moving so quickly that there's a very, very clear linear path to success. But because you're moving so quickly, you can't keep up with payroll. You can't keep up with cash flow. You can't pay off your debts fast enough. I mean, I know that happened with Nike. I know that happened, as you said, with you. That's happened with so many other companies. Can you like give us a deep dive, I guess, not so much into like a logical answer, but more of like the emotional state that you go through when you see the bank account is a negative and you've got, 20 employees to pay and VCs and you've invested 5 years into this company and it could all collapse tomorrow if you don't go ahead and do something about it?
Yeah. I mean,
how does that impact
it's really
you?
like, at least me, I just blame myself. I really do feel like I'm smarter than this. And let me try to think of a good analogy for like what it might feel like. It's almost like when you are in a college or university course and you know how important it is and this is your major, this is what you want to do in your future, these grades are important, and you you procrastinate, you do other things. Like it's not like, I don't think, most people who go to university, who go to college are like working pretty hard, but you might be working hard on your student painting side hustle business like us. You might be working really hard on learning how to date, if that's the first time you're doing it in university. You might be working on all sorts of things, but this class is important, and you get to the final exam and you're like, I'm smarter than this, right? I saw this coming and I had every opportunity to start putting aside time earlier. But then, kind of calling around, looking for the money, just to make payroll, that's kind of like cramming for your exam.
2 days
right
before the exam.
But I feel
gotta go through the whole semester.
I feel like it sounds like in your experience, what's happened was there were things you could have evidently done to avoid it and you just didn't do it. Whereas, and maybe I'm totally wrong, but my perception was always, maybe not always, but often in those situations, it's kind of this unavoidable thing that's just inevitably happening. And there's not a whole lot you can, maybe you don't run out that day if you plan a week ahead, but often it's just kind of occurring and you're like staring into the abyss as the money is just draining.
So do you mean the exams are running out of money? Because both are like pretty hard fixed at date and time. The difference with a company is it's not on a specific schedule, but you can do the math. If you've got $1 million in the bank right now and you're spending $100,000 a month or in net losses, you can do the math. Like the date is not that hard to predict. Just like the date of your exam, you don't know it at the beginning of the semester. It might be, April 15th, it might be April 19th, but it's going to be middle of end of April. So and this is just more of an emotional journey. Obviously the stakes are a lot lower with a course, but it's kind of like, you cram, you make it through, somehow you survive, and then you get on with it. I think the reality is sometimes people don't survive. Like sometimes people fail the course, they get kicked out of school. Sometimes people businesses go bankrupt, right? But for the people who, the brain has this really wonderful way of like forgetting traumatic events. So, for the people who make it through that exam and get the chance to do it all again by the time they get to next semester, they've forgotten about it and they forget to study again.
Well, you figured it out, right? You made it through.
You're like, I did it last time. It went fine last time. It'll be good.
What happens when you study for that exam so hard and you really did put in the work all semester and you got the extra help you needed from tutors and whatnot, and then you still fail the course.
You still fail. That also happens in businesses, right? You hire the right people. You do the right sales motions. You do the right engineering motions, and you don't have product market fit. There is the other thing about the kind of whole tech startup thing is, we talk about the winners like we don't talk about the losers, right? There are a lot of losers. A lot of losers. And so, that happens. The market is more unforgiving than your algebra professor, believe it or not.
Hey everybody, this is Patrick, just checking in quickly after the episode to say thank you so much for listening or watching. We really appreciate it. We've got some super cool interviews lined up in the near future. We're very excited about them, and we think they're going to bring a lot of value to a lot of people. So make sure that you subscribe on your platform of choice. We are officially available on all major podcasting platforms and on YouTube. So make sure you subscribe there and stay tuned for more. We'll see you next time.